My game has a focus on getting through levels very fast, and you gain speed by diving onto enemies. The problem is, it's difficult to tell right now that you're gaining any speed at all. Since this is the case, I really want some way to indicate to players that they're going faster, and I've thought of a few different ideas for this. The first is to simply put in some kind of speedometer on screen. This way the player would be able to tell exactly how fast they're going throughout the course of a level. At one point I was leaning towards this option, since my original plan for this game was to increase the player's speed a little bit every time they defeated an enemy. However, I'm starting to think that going a simpler route would be a better overall experience. Instead of having a speedometer, the player could just have two speeds, normal and fast. That way I don't need to portray a range of speeds that the player could be at, and instead just have to indicate if they're going fast or not. Going this direction with the game allows me to utilize a minimal HUD, or the heads-up display, which is just a bunch of information that's displayed on screen. Most games out there have a HUD, but here's just a random example from Halo 3. The HUD includes things like your health bar, the weapons and ammo, the minimap, and all the other stuff like that. Most of this info is pretty important, but when possible, I like to keep the HUD very simple, or even better, have no HUD at all. My favorite example of this is Dead Space. This game is super unique because, as you can see, there is no HUD whatsoever. Instead, everything you need to know is telegraphed within the world itself. Your health is displayed with this vertical blue gauge on Isaac's back, your weapons show their ammo when you aim, and collectibles project holograms to tell you what they are. It's all very clever. Now, my game is obviously way simpler than a third-person shooter, so the goal for a HUD-less experience is much more attainable. As far as displaying the speed of the player, instead of a speedometer, I'm thinking there could just be some visual cues that indicate the player is going faster. Things like wind movement, speed streaks, and dust particles can all really help with this. The first thing I'll be trying is a streak that trails behind the player when he goes fast. This is my first attempt, and I think it turned out pretty decent. Just a white trail that follows the player's general path. And the way I implement this is very easy. Every frame, I'm going to spawn in one of these white ball images, and it shrinks over time before disappearing. When the player moves, he's constantly spawning these white orbs, which makes the trail effect. To make it more full, I also added some extra orbs using the midpoint formula, in the cases where there are any gaps. That's all it took to make this trail effect. However, I don't want this trail to be there at all times, only when the player is moving fast. So I changed it so the trail only appears after bouncing off an enemy, which is when your speed increases. After that, I made the trail spawn during dives and quick jumps, and I think it looks pretty neat. This whole system leads to some very satisfying combos. Over time, I will need to adjust the appearance of this trail so that vertical speed isn't confused with horizontal speed. But for now, I'm really liking how this looks. I post game dev content on this channel every single week, so be sure to subscribe if you'd like to see more. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.